listening to the Devoted Dreamers podcast, and I'm your host, Heather Oncken. I believe God has an unfolding plan for your life, a God-shaped dream just for you. But so much gets in the way, right? Fear, comparison, imposter syndrome. What if I mess this up? You are not alone in those feelings, and I'm so glad you're here for Season 8. Keep listening to gain some transformational tools that will help you release the lies so that you can freely show up in the world, offering your gifts, leaning on God in your weaknesses, and serving His kingdom with the dream He's given you. Hello. Welcome to episode 197. After this one, we are just one episode away from the end of Season 8. And next week, I'll have one more interview for you, and then I'll be on a break for the entirety of May while I dig into packing boxes and getting ready to move our family to a new home, hopefully in June. Fingers crossed over here. And before we get to the interview today, honest question here, especially for those of you who've been around for a while. How long have you been listening to the Devoted Dreamers podcast with a dream in your own heart, but you're still holding back on taking any action on that dream? Seriously, how long has it been? Weeks? Months? Years? This podcast turns 5 on June 1st. Has it been years that you have been listening to the Devoted Dreamers podcast? If so, is the dream still there? Is it burning a hole, so to speak, in your heart? Like you know you need to do something, but you're not sure what that something is, or you just can't quite muster up whatever it's going to take to do that thing? If you are still spinning your wheels and it has been weeks, months, maybe even years since the Lord gave you this prompting, I have to ask, what is it going to take? What has to change in order for your dream to move from out there in outer space to reality? And what's the cost if it doesn't? Because I'm going to tell you a little sneaky secret here that the enemy wants to use against you. The longer you linger, the longer you sit back not pursuing the dream, the easier it is to keep not pursuing the dream. You are actually strengthening the muscle of inaction. You're growing in your ability to not do it, to resist doing it, to stop listening to that still small voice. And even the slightest attempt to move forward, you'll be coming up with every excuse in the book to stay right where you are. I am saying all of this in love. I hope you know my heart. But if your dream is eating away at you, if you know in your knower that you are called to this, it is time to take action. Stop thinking about it and not doing. Stop mulling about moving in this direction or that direction, left turn or right turn. Stop not doing your dream. The time is now, and I want to be there for you in it. I'm taking on just a few more dream coaching clients this summer, and I've got a spot just for you. The first step in getting out of inaction is to sign up for a discovery call today. You'll find the link in the episode description, but it's bit.ly/dreamer call. Go there right now and sign up for a discovery call so that you can bring your dream to fruition. Now, let's get to the conversation with Heather Oncken. Getting to know Heather this year has been an incredible blessing. She joined in as part of the beta test for my podcasting course with Natalie Arndt in the first quarter of 2021. So she's got a new podcast coming out that I cannot wait for you to hear about from her. She's going to talk about it in this episode. But Heather lives outside of Chicago with her husband and 4 girls. She is passionate about her faith and sharing with others the importance of being intentional and showing up in your friendships. Heather is brand new to the entrepreneurial world and is in the process of creating an app that will help us pursue our friends in more intentional ways. I need help with this, so I'm so glad we're getting to hear from Heather today. She's also homeschooling those kiddos, working nights as a labor and delivery nurse. There were a ton of metaphors related to birth and labor and being at 8 centimeters in our conversations about launching a dream. But Heather is currently missing out on her former hobbies of reading, running, and binging a good Netflix series, and she hopes one day she'll get to return to those. A few of my takeaways from this conversation that I want you to listen for. Number one, the importance of being faithful in the little things and paying attention all along the way. Number two, that promptings from the Lord probably come more often than we realize, mostly because we haven't trained ourselves to listen for them. And then number three, the gift it is that God doesn't show us all the little steps along the way to our dream, because we would probably quit before we've even begun. How merciful is He to just give us a little bit at a time. I'm so excited to introduce you to Heather Oncken. Here's the interview. Devoted Dreamers, welcome to the podcast. I am super excited about this episode. It has been a long time coming. I'm bringing today Heather Oncken to the show, and we met. She's been a listener of the Devoted Dreamers podcast, but we met through the podcast course that I did earlier this year, and she's one of my students who's birthing a podcast. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. But Heather is here from Chicago, and welcome, Heather. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, I was just thinking about like how surreal like all this is. Like a year ago, I was a listener, and then taking your course and now being one of your guests. Like it's just crazy. So I am so excited to be here.
Hopefully you're still a listener.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, you are a busy mama. You have 4 girls. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
4 girls.
You have a lot going on in your life.
Yes, I do.
And we're going to get to all of that. And I really, you know what? I think I want you to start with the story from the basement.
Okay.
I always ask people, what's your God-shaped dream? But I want you to start in the basement before you really even knew. Well, there's other pieces of it, but start there and we'll get back to the other stuff that comes before that.
The basement piece was I had been thinking about starting a podcast, but it was in my mind way down the road. And so I was in the basement on a December night, cleaning up after the kids went to bed. And honestly, I'm super lame. Like it's one of my favorite things to do, to go down at the end of the night, put on a podcast and just clean up and organize, because everybody leaves me alone. Like I'm cleaning up. Nobody's going to come down. My oldest daughter doesn't. My husband, like nobody's going to come down and offer to help clean. So I get time to myself. And I was listening to your podcast, and it was with Natalie, and you guys were talking about a upcoming beta podcasting course. And I was thinking, I'm not ready for this. Like I'm thinking, honestly, I was thinking like a year down the road from where I currently was before I was even thinking about starting it. But just everything that you were saying was just like, okay, maybe this is God. Because I had been asking like when I should do this, but feeling like my plate may be a little bit too full to add this right now. And so I heard that, and I went to my husband and was like, what do you think? And he's like, I think it's a great opportunity. And the time commitment wasn't huge. And it was like, okay, I can totally put this into my week. And so I took it, learned so much. And in doing that, I met some other great friends who were also students. And one of them, even now that the podcasting course is done, we've remained in touch, and we're both working on getting our podcast up and launch. And so we're still meeting weekly to give each other the checklist of like holding each other accountable. Like, okay, what are you going to do this week? What are you going to do this week? And then having that person the following week that's going to hold you accountable, that you got done with, X, Y, and Z. And so through meeting her, she's connected with some people that are in line with like my podcast and would be amazing guests to be on my show, and just have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that my listeners will really grow from. And so I just was thinking, I was in my quiet time last week And, you have those times where you're like, God, where are you? And then you have those times where you just see God's hand so clearly. And I just went back to that December night. It was just a normal day in my week. People would look at it as the mundane, everyday things I do, go downstairs, end of the night, clean up. But in that, God was working. I listened to your podcast, which then got me in contact with all of the people that were in the podcasting course. My friendship with Brandy then developed. And then from that, she's gotten me connected to other people who are connecting me to people who are going to help with my podcast. And so it just amazes me that something that was so simple that night is cleaning the basement. God was weaving that into my story. He was weaving that into my dream. And I think when those kind of things are happening, we don't see it right then. It's down the road when you look at all of these things that have linked together and you're like, God, you have been in this from the beginning. You were in this with me in the basement cleaning. Like you were there. You were making this all a part of my story.
I love that so much. And I think that's why I wanted to start with that, because there's so much of that happens in our lives, right? That it's not until we look back can we see his fingerprints on everything. I mean, we know if we trust and believe him, like, yeah, he's here. He's in my life. He's doing stuff. But yeah, it's just really cool to have that 2020 hindsight. Like, this was, yes, I didn't know it at the time, but this is the road I was needing to go down. I'm going to have to ask you now to fill out some of the holes. So tell us about your podcast. Tell us about your God-shaped dream. How do those things connect? What else are you working on? Fill it in.
Okay. It's kind of a long story, so I'll try to give like the abbreviated version. So back in May of 2019, I was just going through just a dark season, just very challenging season of life. And I'm not sure if it was May Day or if it was my birthday, because May Day and my birthday are right by each other. But I had a friend who came over and just left flowers on the door and just sent a text like, hey, left you a little something, love you. And I got those flowers and it made me feel so loved, seen, important, that what it did in me was it made me want to go out and do that for somebody else. And it was at that moment, like I will never forget where I was standing in my kitchen, that I just had this thought of, geez, we have the ability to reach out to our friends, to let them know that they are loved and that they are important in simple ways, by dropping a little gift at their door, seeing that they're having a bad day on Facebook and being like, hey, I see that your kids are giving you a hard time. I'm going to drop you off a coffee at your door. We have the ability to change somebody's day, somebody's week, even somebody's life by choosing to show up and to be intentional. And when that happened and that friend made me feel so loved, and that friend is a busy mom. She's got 4 kids. She is not like she's got nothing to do and is just sitting at home eating bonbons. Like, she's busy. It took her being intentional and seeing that I was in a place that I just needed to be loved. And she decided to come over, do that very simple act. I honestly don't even think the flowers were from like a store. I think it was just something she picked, she put together. She's of course one of those really like crafty people that can just make anything look pretty. But she just showed me like, it's not about necessarily how much you're choosing to spend or even what you're choosing to give that person. It was the fact of, she let me know that I mattered and that I was important. And when that happened, it set something off in me to be like, why don't we do this more? We all have the ability. If you were to ask anybody, do you want to change the world? Everybody would say yes. Everybody wants to change the world. Everybody wants to do something. Well, each one of us has the impact to change somebody's day. Why aren't we doing that? So I just had this just feeling in my spirit that day that not only did I want to be more intentional with my relationships and to let my friends know that they were loved and that they were important, that they mattered, but I also was like, is there a way that I can create something that if I could make something that it would make it easier for people to be intentional? Because I started reaching out to people because I was just very curious of why don't we do this more? Why don't you give more? Why don't you, we know that you appreciate when you love your friend, but why don't you show that more? What is stopping you? And the two things that kept coming up when we would ask people is that they didn't have the time, being busy, and they didn't know what to give. And so I just stopped. I just was praying about it because I didn't know what this looked like. I knew that God had put something in me that I was supposed to do something, but I didn't know what that was. So I just started praying about it. And I remember praying. And the only thing that I could articulate when I would pray is I just felt like God was saying that he wanted to do something through me that was bigger than me. And so I would go and I tell my husband, I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel like God wants to do something through me that's bigger than me. And he like would look at me like I had three eyeballs and be like, okay, well, how much is this going to cost? And I'm like, I don't know what it looks like. I'm just telling you, I just have this desire. Because part of me was like, maybe somebody has the other half of it. Like maybe God has just given me half of the dream and there's somebody that's got the other half. And so I did confide in a couple of close friends that were in my small group. And I said, I just feel like God has put something in me that I want to create something to help people to become more intentional in their relationships, because I have seen firsthand when you're intentional and you let somebody know that they're loved and that they're important, that it changes them. Like it changes them. And so I want to create something that makes it easy for everybody to do that. And so I just kept praying, and I'm going to tell you, I was so discouraged because that was May of 2019. And I just felt like God kept that desire burning, but I wasn't getting any sort of further direction. The only thing that I knew was that it was bigger than me and that it was something to do with your phone, that had to be on something that everybody has with them all the time. And what do you have with you all the time? Your phone. And so I didn't know, is that an app? Am I actually going to create like a product that people can just with a touch of a button send to their friend? I didn't know what any of that looked like. So I just kept praying, but I'm going to tell you, I was getting very impatient that God was not showing me the clear plan to my dream. And so I just remember one night in my frustration of praying and like, God, you've given me this desire to do something. I want to follow you. Will you show me it? And I just remember him gently speaking in my spirit and just saying, Heather, all that I want you to do right now is to be faithful in the little things that no one will ever see. That friend that just had surgery, bring her a meal. That friend that you see on Facebook that's struggling, drop off her favorite coffee, bring over some chocolate. Like just when you see somebody that has a need, I want you to meet it. That's all that I'm asking you to do right now. And so I just kept praying. And in February of 2020, so I mean, almost a year after this desire was like placed in my heart, one of my friends from my small group who I had prayed with, she called me and she's like, I think I may have something that is part of your dream. And so she came over and basically shared that she had just taken a job as a manager of a call center, and she was looking for an app that would allow her to give her employees basically a profile that they could fill out their favorites. And then that way, like when it was their birthday or if they had done, something that they needed to be recognized for at work, she knew what to give them. And she's like, can you believe this doesn't exist? And so I initially was like, I'm not sure like I was thinking of this as more being a friendship thing that I had my dream was and what I really felt God was calling me. But I'm like, maybe I was a bit off because this does seem like a great idea. And so we started to kind of develop like what that profile would look like. And in figuring it out, we realized as we're listing these questions of favorites, that us being friends for years, we didn't know any of these about each other. And then all of a sudden, the light bulb went off and it was like, this is it. This isn't like, yes, this can be used in the workplace, but we need this for our connections. We need this for our friends. If I were to go to a store and to get her favorite chocolate, I would have no idea what it was. She didn't know I don't drink Starbucks. Now, I don't not drink Starbucks because I don't like it. I don't drink it because I would go get like the foo drink that's like 1,200 calories and I just don't want to drink my calories. I want to eat them. So I just avoid Starbucks. But she was like, I never knew that about you. And I can't tell you how many gift cards to Starbucks I get. And I give them to my 13-year-old daughter. I mean, the people get them for me, are trying to bless me, and I don't use them. And so we realized at that moment that we needed to create this because the world needed it. Up until this point, the thought that counts has been okay because nothing like this has ever existed that we've actually known what people want. And also through developing and working on this, we've realized like people waste, I think it was last year, it was $16 billion in unwanted gifts, because what people do is like, think about when you go to the store and you're putting together like a little gift basket for your friend that you don't know what any of her favorites are. You actually end up spending more because you overcompensate and you're like, well, if she doesn't like this, this, and this, maybe she'll like this and this. And so we end up spending all of this extra money that is, and then we don't even know if the person actually likes it. So that was when that was when we decided to move forward with developing this app. And that was the start of the app being built. And that we signed on with our app developer in June of 2020. So from February to June, we were trying to figure out our way because neither of us are technical people. Not at all. Like, I have no idea. I'm a labor and delivery nurse by trade, and she is a manager of a call center. So neither one of us had a clue. So we had to find an app developer, and we had to figure out what the heck we were doing, how much we were willing to invest, and obviously continuing to pray about it. So we finally started in June of 2020. And I just thought, like, you just handed the app developer the money and the idea, and bam, you'd have in like 3 weeks an app. Let me just tell you, that's not the case. No, it's not. It is not at all. And so we have been in the process of working on this, and we are almost ready to start beta testing, which I'm super excited. But it has been a process. And in doing that process, what kind of got me to the podcast is obviously our app is the tool. You now have this tool in your pocket that when you see that your friend has had a bad day, or she has lost her job, or whatever the case may be, or she's had a great day, she's got a job promotion, what you want to celebrate, or whatever it is, you now have the ability to just click on her, find out the things that she loves, and drop them off. Boom. So we've created that. But what we wanted was, we just didn't want to stop at the tool. What we back up to February 2020 when we started, the plan is that we were going to go and speak at conferences, and just that's how we were going to get the word out about the app. Well, then guess what happened in March? Mm-hmm. COVID, bye-bye conferences and large groups of people. And so we kind of had to like go, okay, how are we going to really get this out? And not only get it out, but educate people on why it's important to be intentional. Like, why you should want to be showing up for your friends, why you should be doing this. Like, it's just not a blessing to your friend when you do that. Giving actually makes you happier and healthier and filled with more joy. So it's a blessing for you. And so after COVID started and we realized, okay, this is not going to play out like we thought. When we got into like launching the app with our app developer, he's like, what other avenues are you going to do with like just letting people know about your app? And so this is kind of where the podcast came in. Was we don't just want to be the tool. We don't want to just hand you this tool. We want to show you why it's important. We want to show you why it's important for you to be intentional. And I thought when COVID first started, I thought this is terrible timing. But actually in all of it, like, people right now are desiring deeper connections with people, I think more than we've ever had, because we lost it. We never lost that before. Yeah. And I think now people are really desperate for that. And so that is kind of what the podcast is going to be, is we want to come alongside and give you practical tips on how to cultivate deeper friendships. We want to show you, hey, it's Mother's Day. Here's some great ideas how to love on your mom friends. Or, hey, it's Valentine's Day. Do you have any single friends? Like, show them that they're loved. Show them just because they don't have a significant other that they're not any less. Like, so we want to give you those practical, hands-on, super easy for you to do in your life. And then we want to do more of the meat, more of the hard stuff, the social media. Is that really helping our friendships? Comparison, when we disagree. I mean, I think 2020 was a year of a lot of different opinions and a lot of relationships that suffered because of that. And that doesn't have to be the end because we have a different opinion. And then the other part of the show that I'm really excited about is we're going to have people come on who have walked through very difficult seasons that maybe we never have. And I know for me, I'm a fixer. So when I have somebody who's going through something really hard and there's nothing I can do, I get uncomfortable and I tend to pull back. And that is not what they need. What they need is people coming alongside them. So these guests are going to come on our show and they are going to educate us on things that people did that really helped them, what things people did that did not help them, and what they needed. And they're going to teach us all, including me, on how we can show up and be better friends. So I'm super excited about that part. Yes.
Your podcast is called Connecting in the Chaos. So, yes. And it's maybe not quite live as we're recording this, but
it will be live.
It will be live by the time this goes live.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay. So right now, when you're done listening to this episode, you can go look for Connecting in the Chaos and get caught up there on some of the suggestions and just thinking. Everything you just talked about is really great. I mean, I can think of so many ways that the work that you're doing is really going to be impactful. And I mean, like you said to me earlier, I think before we started recording, like just, the difference that this one friend made in your life, like sparked this whole dream. I mean, she thought maybe she was helping you have a better day, but the change, like you're starting a podcast, you're launching an app, you're like helping other people shift their thinking about being intentional. And it's huge and it's amazing what God can do with just one little spark.
Absolutely. And I think, on that, I think God speaks to us, each one of us, through promptings, and like to check in on a friend or like drop something off, or you may see something in a store and it makes you think of them. Like, I think that we get those more often than we follow through on them. Mm-hmm. And so I think after she did that, and it made me realize what an impact it made on me, I am so much more sensitive to those promptings that, okay, God, like this person needs something. And I'm going to tell you, the blessing that you get out of allowing God to use you in that is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the same too for our dreams. I mean, it's just all like, how are we listening to him? Are we paying attention to what he's like got his hands on in our lives, which is everything.
Right.
So that's really sweet. So that this opportunity to listen to the promptings of God, it's going to strengthen that ability in us. The more we do it, the more we understand it's there, that we can pay attention to it. That's awesome. Well, Heather, I've had a little bit of a behind the scenes look at some of the struggles, the ups and downs that you guys have been through this. It wasn't just, snap your finger and build an app, but I would love to have you just kind of give us an honest look about what's been hard about saying, yes, God, and I'm paying attention, and okay, you've asked me to do this, but it's not easy. Have you dealt with all of that?
Right. Well, as I was saying before we started recording, is that I think that the reason why when God places a dream in you, that he doesn't show you the whole entire picture is because A, it wouldn't keep us depending and trusting in him for the next step. But B, I think a lot of us wouldn't do this. We wouldn't take that step out because we would see the path and we'd be like, that is way too much. And I told you, I'm like, if I would have seen this, I would have been like, peace out. You can find somebody else. Because I'm going to tell you, back January or February of 2020, this looked like it was going to be a whole lot more fun than it is. Fun. It would not be anything I'd use to describe it currently. So I think that is part of the reason why God is just like, just trust me for the next step. Because if you saw that whole path, I think a lot of us would be intimidated and scared and be like, there's no way I can do that. I just even look at things that I've done. I've had some help, but I just built my Connecting in the Chaos website, and I am not a web developer. Just the fact that I did that, I was like, wow, I'm doing things that if you would have said I would have needed to do to get to this place, I would have probably been like, no, that's too much work. That's too hard. There's been a lot of hard. So, but just for example, to give you a little example on app developing is when we notice glitches in it. And when you fix something, you break two other things. And so it's just this constantly feeling like,
no, thank you.
Just want to bang my head against the wall. Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. But then I feel like I have those times where I go, is anybody going to use this? Or I think about the podcast, is anybody going to listen? And then I feel like God shows up so clearly that he is in this. We'll get just enough encouragement. We'll get just enough support to get us to that next step. He just carries us. And so, and when you know that you are on track and that when you know that you are following God's dream for your life, we have no other, why else would you want to get off that path? I mean, you know that he's in it. If he is in it, then he is going to sustain me to complete it. So that is what I hang on to in my days or my nights that are very long and very challenging. And I mean, right now, I'm still working as a nurse and I work overnight. So I work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I have cut back my hours. So it's one night a week. I'm homeschooling my two big girls. And then we have these calls with my app developer and we get on the phone at 8:00 at night, and they usually go to midnight or 1 a.m. And we just go through using the app and finding every bug we can. And so this was not at all what I thought this would be, but then when I see God show up and just give us what we need to carry us through that next step, I'm like, okay, God, I trust you. If you've given us this dream, you've given us this vision, you're in this, you're going to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah. And so on that note, like, have there been some spiritual disciplines or some specific verses of scripture that you keep returning back to when it gets hard? Like, how have you responded to continue to strengthen that muscle of trusting him and believing that he's with you?
So I think for me, my quiet time is very important. And I have noticed when I get too busy and I start like, okay, I've got to get all this done, and my quiet time gets ignored or it gets missed, I can totally feel myself out of alignment, and I'm just not working as effectively as I would be as if I spent my time with him first. And so I have learned that, okay, I'm going to get an hour less of work done, but if I don't meet with God first, my time is not going to be, I'm not going to be as productive in my time with working on whatever I'm supposed to be working on or getting done. And I think the other thing that has been challenging is balancing my home life, which I did not anticipate because I've never really had to balance that before. I have worked, but I've worked nights, and I've worked nights so that I can be home with my kids all day, and they're just used to always having me. And so that's been a little bit of an adjustment, that I'm downstairs in the basement. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes when I'm downstairs in the basement working, not good things go on upstairs. They can be so naughty. And sometimes I think they take advantage of me being busy, and they know that mom is working, so we can eat all the Easter candy, or whatever it may be. So whatever it may be, get into gum. That's their thing. They're my twins, who are 4, not allowed to have gum because they do not throw it in the garbage. And so they find big sister's gum when mom is downstairs trying to work.
Right. So when you say balance, you mean you're just cleaning up gum when you're coming upstairs.
Pretty much. I know that there's always going to be, I'm going to pay for whatever I have to do. So a lot of my work I try to do my quiet time in the morning, and then my work after the kids go to bed. And that unfortunately means there's not a whole lot of sleep. But I mean, the good news is I've worked night shift for 20 years. So I am used to being sleep deprived. I'm used to it, and it doesn't really faze me.
Totally. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I guess the upside, hopefully, is that it won't always look this way. This is a season. You guys are in a growing phase, and you'll be growing in a new way in a few months, hopefully.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know how you do the helping birth babies and birth a business and a podcast all at the same time, but girl.
It's not me. I'm going to tell you. Yeah, that's exactly why. And I said that to you earlier, is I think for people that knew me before the app and the podcast, they can look and they can know that this is all God, because this is not me. This is him using. And I just look at, like, one of my favorite scriptures is 1 Corinthians 1:27. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things to shame the strong. And I think for so long with this dream, my thinking was, why would God use me? And then I had to shift to, why wouldn't he use me? I mean, when you look at everybody in the Bible that he used, they were not the people that the world would call qualified. So that is not who God calls. So I love, I think it's Christine Kane. She says, God doesn't call the qualified, he equips the called. And I think, like, that's it. Like, if he is calling you to do something, it doesn't matter what your degree is. It doesn't matter if you're a stay-at-home mom. It doesn't matter. I didn't even know how to send out a Google Doc before I started this. Like, he doesn't care. Like, if you are willing to be obedient, he will equip you to do what he's got.
Amen, sister. And we learn so much along the way.
one of the other things that I was going to say is in terms of my dream with the podcast and the app is I will notice sometimes that I am starting to feel very anxious and I'm starting to get very stressed. And when I have noticed when I get into that is I am shifting out of doing this in God's strength, and I have shifted into doing it in Heather's strength. And the thing with that is whatever I start in Heather's strength, I'm going to have to maintain in that. So that is a place where when I start to get like feeling very unsettled, very anxious, like, okay, whose strength are we doing this in? Because I'm going to tell you with what I'm doing and stepping out and stuff that is so outside of my comfort zone and so outside of who I thought I was, I do not want to do this anybody's strength but God's.
And so how do you recenter that? Is it just, okay, Lord, help me get myself back there to depending on you? Because I think it is, and a worldly perspective, like, sure, I can do a few. I could send a Google Doc. I know how to do that,
Right. No, I think that's usually when I have to do those internal checks of like, what's my time been with the Lord? How much have I been seeking him in this? Like when I'm doing this stuff, am I just going with what other people are recommending, or am I going before him first for his guidance, his direction? Because sometimes I think once we start getting connected and we have these people in our lives, sometimes their voice and what they're telling us to do, we can easily just start following that, and God gets placed on the back burner. And so when I get into those places, I just have to do that check of like, okay, am I still going to you first, Lord? Like, am I just taking these women's wisdom and what they're telling me to do and just running with it? Or am I going to you first? And so that is when I just kind of have to like recalibrate and be like, okay, where am I at? And usually all of those times it's because I've just been doing my own thing and just doing things off of people's recommendations or what I've read on, different Facebook groups or whatever, instead of being like, okay, God, this is yours. You are using me to do this. What would you like? And so is forgetting to put him in his place and just having that like, okay, we're not doing this in Heather's strength. We're doing this in yours. So you need to be the first check, not the last.
I think he reins us in too.
Yeah.
We start to do that. Well, I know you had a free resource that you wanted to point people to so that they could kind of start to think more about this being intentional. So you talk about that for a minute?
Yes. If you go to my website, which is connectinginthechaos.com, there is a resource, just simple ways to be intentional. And there's super practical ways that we can just start showing up in our friends' lives today.
Sweet. Awesome. Okay. Well, and we're not going to say the name of the app. So we're going to let you...
We're
I'll let you announce that in another way.
We're not.
So for anyone who's out there wondering about that, you just stay tuned. Well, I will be sure to promote it when that time comes. But Heather, it's first of all been so fun to walk a little bit of this journey with you. And I can't wait for your podcast to go live. It's really exciting to get to see that baby being born.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Well, as we kind of close out, would you just share a little bit about how you've seen yourself? Like, how has God transformed you in saying yes to this thing that he put on your heart?
I think the biggest way that I have seen him transform me is just more of a dependence and a trust on him, because I know all of this isn't me. This is me being a vessel that he's using. And so just seeing the fact that he can use ordinary, simple people to do big things. And the fact that he would choose me is very humbling. And it keeps me in that place of just total dependence on him, because this isn't me. This is something outside of him that I could never maintain. And so it's just brought me to just a new level of trust of like, God, if you're not in this, I can't do this. Like, I literally can't do this. I mean, the few episodes that I have recorded already, like, he has given me just the words and what those episodes are supposed to be on. And everything I just feel like has been just him, me having more of that quiet before him and just being able to just listen to the Spirit and just being very sensitive to that. And I think now that I'm more sensitive to that, I think back in my life of times when the Spirit actually was speaking to me and I didn't know that that's what it was. And so I am just so grateful to have an opportunity that he doesn't give up on us. Just because you don't get it once, he's not like, okay, check, like on to the next. Like, he doesn't give up on us, and his patience, and just the fact that I am not by any means a perfect person, a perfect friend, a perfect mom, but that he would take somebody like me and show the world, show other women that he can use the simplest things if you're just willing to take that first step and willing to trust him. That you don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have a list of qualifications. That he just wants you to trust him. And I think, honestly, like people like me who don't have the qualifications to do this, in the end, he gets all the glory, because everybody knows this isn't Heather, this is God. And so he gets it all. And obviously that is what this whole story is about. It's just about me pointing the glory back to God and just saying, God, thank you for my time here on earth, you allowing me to be used in this way.
Thanks for listening today. Don't let the conversation end here. Let's connect over in the Devoted Dreamers Insiders group on Facebook. We're building a sweet community of dreamers, so no one has to walk this road alone. You can find the group at bit.ly/dreamergroup. I'll see you in there.